Hello, everybody. Josh Brown here, back for another great episode on Franchise Euphoria. Well, today's episode is brought to you by IndieFranchiseLaw.com, a leading resource in the franchise space to help you if you're considering buying a franchise, turning your business into a franchise, or growing your business through a licensing or franchise structure. So go on, check it out, IndieFranchiseLaw.com. I think you'll find a lot of valuable and free information as you continue to kind of weigh franchising and licensing and the growth of your business. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy today's episode. On today's episode of Franchise Euphoria, I'm speaking with Dawn Cutillo, the founder of BeBalanced, a national health center specializing in hormone balancing. Dawn has worked in the health field for over 30 years, and early in her career, Dawn focused on corporate fitness and later progressed to fitness management and running her first women's weight loss center. She currently oversees the operation of the flagship BeBalanced location and works at the hormone health consultant for all of the franchise locations. Had a great chat with Dawn. She brings a ton of energy, a ton of excitement. And this is really a unique, franchise brand, at least for this show. So I think you'll really enjoy this interview with Dawn from BeBalanced. Hello, Dawn. Welcome to Franchise Euphoria. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, me too. You're the founder of a concept called BeBalanced, which, we're going to learn all about here today. And I don't think, this is kind of exciting. I've done over 300 episodes. I'm not sure I've ever had somebody on with this type of a franchise. So I'm really excited about that because I love to learn about new and different franchises and business models. So, but before we dive into that, tell a little bit about you and your background and how you came up with the idea for BeBalanced.
Yes. Well, I guess that is kind of the foundation. Well, I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but it was kind of back in the 80s when the fitness and health thing really took off. And that was back, I probably was, what was I, about like 12, 13, 14 at that time. And me and my brother actually both were really into like lifting weights and going to health clubs, and we had to go with our parents at that point. But I was really excited about that. And as I got a little older, I thought, in my teens and then decided about going to college, I thought I really want to work with more women, but men and women with health, fitness, and general wellness. But alternative medicine wasn't really mainstream at that point. So I wanted to go to college, but I'm like, well, what do I do? The choices were like dietitian, and I don't want to work in a hospital, a nurse, or a physical education teacher, or maybe a sports medicine specialist. So none of these really fit. So I ended up going to a private college, and I put together my own little repertoire of courses. I think my I think my guidance counselor thought I was crazy because I was like figuring out my way through, and even with an internship, I had to do that. So I ended up with a bachelor's of science in health and phys ed with nutrition, but I took it non-teaching, and I added the courses I needed and also business because I thought, who knows, maybe I'll start my own business one day in this. I don't know. So the only way I could get around it for it to make sense to people is I went with the corporate health and wellness route. So people kind of understood that, oh yeah, corporate wellness is starting to get bigger, and I did. I worked in a very large hospital insurance company and helped them with health and wellness. So I was kind of on my way, but I kind of liked weight loss a little bit more. So I got involved. I moved back to Lancaster and got involved with a very large health club. And I was put in charge of nutrition, personal training. But eventually, he brought in a franchise, actually a women's weight loss franchise. They since had gone out of business. They got bought out, long story. But I was in charge of that. And that's really was my niche, helping women with weight loss. So I thought, here I am in a health club. And the way I made money is he gave me a percentage of the business. So that was great. So I thought if I work hard, I can do well. Because I didn't want to, go to college and then just get a job in a health club. For the amount of money you spend for college, it just didn't seem to balance. So I started working there, and that's when I started realizing the problem. and I was, in my 30s at that point, late 20s, early 30s. I had a few hormonal issues myself, but I was very into health and nutrition. But I started to see women working out hard. I'm watching them work out. They're doing a good diet, clean diet. We even did relaxation therapy, detoxification, and they weren't losing weight near the way they should. And that was hard for me because I'm their counselor. I'm trying to help them. And I was even struggling with some things myself. And that's when I noticed, hey, there's something wrong here with the traditional calories in, calories out theory of just losing weight. It wasn't truly scientific, because if something's truly scientific, it should work over and over and over again. That's the definition. And it wasn't working in the quadrant of the population that was women like over 40. So I think that's where I first saw there's some sort of problem that laid the foundation for me saying I need to get in here and start connecting the dots.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a great historical perspective on sort of how you came up with the underlying concept of Be Balanced. So once you make that decision and once you figure out, okay, it's more than just calories in and calories out, there's something on the hormonal side. What then led you and talk about how you went from that, because a lot of people have ideas, right? But then
Sure.
taking it from the idea stage and turning it into an actual business.
What I found was that I was even having problems. So then I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not that old here. I'm in my even 30s, probably earlier, 34, 35. And I was having a hard time like keeping my weight under control. And like I said, it's problems with my skin and some other hormonal, I won't go into all them issues. So I knew like I had a little bit of a hormonal issue and then I couldn't lose weight. So then I started getting determined, even like a wounded healer, I'm like trying to figure out the problem on my own. So that's when I started observing women. Then I came in contact with a soon to be retired clinical nutritionist that had been in the field for years. He was also a lab scientist along with a chemist. And I got to work with them directly, and they started to help me understand a little bit more about hormones. So I basically connected the dots between traditional weight loss, right? Diet and exercise, calories in, calories out, and what was going on with sex hormones, right? Estrogen, progesterone, men have testosterone, and stress hormones, cortisol. So, and then how does that interface with blood sugar and insulin? So, I was taking all these things that doctors work with individually and putting them all together. And I knew there was a real need for this, and no one was really specifically addressing it. Like your OBGYN, she wouldn't really know, or your endocrinologist, he would just know more if you should be on insulin if you were diabetic or if you should be on thyroid medicine. But he couldn't help you lose weight. Your OBGYN couldn't do that. Obviously, we're a health club, we're into nutrition and diet, and we weren't able to answer this question. So, what if we could put all this together? So I did that there, and I worked with a clinical nutritionist and the chemist for a while there, and then it ended up being in my best interest to leave because I was working. It was a conflict of interest. I was working for the franchise, and the lady that was in charge of the whole franchise wanted to adopt some of my theories and use some of the clinical nutritionist products for hormone balancing. So I ended up leaving there. Sad to say, they eventually went out of business. They got bought out. And then me and the clinical nutritionist and the chemist, I started my own little center. I called it the Rejuvenation Center. And it was mainly focusing on rejuvenating the body through balancing hormones. Of course, we talked about diet and exercise. Diet, of course, is very foundational to this. But that's when I started my own center.
When you started the center, are you just at this point consulting with people and talking with them and working them through a plan? Or what are you doing when you start the center?
Well, when my partner, I'll say, who was a clinical nutritionist, he was a lab scientist as well. He actually trained me a lot more on hormones. So I saw that, and that's where my background's kind of unique. He would show me all these lab tests that they had done while they developed certain products. So him and the chemist actually developed products while doing testing, certain natural hormone balancing creams and things like that. And that's pretty rare because people don't understand. I could develop a product in my basement or in my garage and then put it out there because these things aren't all, don't have to be approved by the FDA, nutritional supplements. I could just put that out there and pretty much say, oh, this is great, it works. Whereas these were actually made by doing testing. So all of my education when it came to the deeper hormones was from actually seeing tests. And we would have women come in and we would test their hormones. So it was all consultation based. There was no gym there. It was just a small consultation with a couple. We used to do detoxification therapies like a sauna, a foot bath, those types. So we had modalities there, but it was mostly my partner consulting. And I was still studying a little bit more in depth to put together a specific protocol for weight loss. So the Be Balanced protocol itself wasn't actually developed yet. My former partner would actually consult with people. I would support him. I would sit in, I would learn. And we just had our cozy little center there. Then eventually he started feeling like, hey, you know what? I'm getting a little older. I might want to retire. I continued to work with a chemist, developed some more products with them and that are proprietary to us now at Be Balanced. And that's where then my brother came along. He was basically working in Philadelphia for a very large company in sales and marketing and things. And he had left there and he said, you know what, Dawn, your results with this protocol that you're doing, because I introduced this new weight loss protocol when my partner had left. And actually the business even doubled because it was so focused on weight specifically instead of all the other hormonal imbalances that were kind of more medically oriented that he focused on because he could. I took that and said, you know what? You know what women really care about is their weight. And if we can get them on a good hormone balancing protocol with their weight, you're going to get these other results anyway. And I think that's going to draw more people in. And it did. So, like I said, the business double, my brother looked at it and said, "This is great." He goes, "Your results are so consistent. This could be something that we could look at as a license." Initially, he thought of that. And then eventually, legally, it turned out it was actually more of a franchise, even though the laws on that, you probably know this better than me, are just, they can be a little bit confusing.
For sure.
Right? So we couldn't get straight answers. So I thought, legally, let's do this the right way, and then let's jump in with franchising. And I will say that Dave and I both, I don't think, expected to jump right in to this huge endeavor of franchising, which you learn as you go. It's big. You know what I mean? We've learned along the way the last 5 years. So that's when we decided. So I moved my location to a larger location. My brother worked out of the office. He had more staff. His wife became involved, Jennifer, and she's great at COO. And then we started slowly building a staff here, and we started to slowly then bring on franchisees, and we just developed the system. Was already developed, I shouldn't say that. The system was very McDonaldized. It was very systematic on what people do, and we can get into that. I'm trying to just do the business part now. We can talk about what is the BeBalanced system.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, because you go from, you've got this program that now it sounds like with the franchise model, the idea is that you're going to bring other people in, you're going to train them, get them certified in a certain way, and then they're going to have the opportunity within a certain geographic location to then go bring other people into the system in terms of, they're the people who could benefit from this program. Is the program, the foundational elements of the program, based on, it looks like a 14-week plan that you guys have with 5 different phases?
Correct, correct. So it's basically, if people say, well, what is BeBalanced? We say it's a form of natural hormone balancing that addresses the two biggest problems that women have as they age. One is stubborn weight. And again, we do market to probably 35 plus. We can talk about the younger generation. We can help them for sure, but basically 35 plus, because they have more problems. They're approaching perimenopause, menopause. So it helps them with the stubborn weight, and also helps them with a myriad of other symptoms that really lower their quality of life, like hot flashes and night sweats, things with their mood, such as depression, anxiety, issues with insomnia, and even other female health issues. I won't get into all of them. I'll touch on that later when we talk about testimonials. So it's really a system of using, of course, diet is foundational, relaxation therapy, and we do give advice on exercise. They do that more on their own, but basically diet, relaxation therapy, natural supplements, and then support and education. That's kind of our foundation, and it goes through several phases. The phases are basically a weight loss phase, a maintenance phase, and then there's phases on the back end that help them to maintain that long term and bring in even more information. Because it's one thing to get through a weight loss program, but then if you really want to maintain it, what are the better foods to eat? What are things to avoid? How to, get your family involved? How to get through the holidays? So we have classes at the end called Balance Bites that they can be in a group setting, because all the other consultations are individual. They can be in a group setting and really just have fun and meet with other women that have had success too. And it's a real fun group dynamic. So yeah, I won't bore you with the 5 different phases, but it's basically 14-week. The amazing thing that I think people would be interested in is the results are 15 pounds, usually to 20 in a month. And it's all by
Wow.
balance. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it's fat. It's not, we used to do testing, muscle testing initially to make sure that, it was fat that they were losing. And it really is. So the amazing thing is, when you balance hormones, we can take the toughest segment of the population, women over 35 or 40, and get faster results with them than the other segments of the population, men, young boys, young girls, or young women, that are actually doing traditional diet and exercise, which is what, a pound a week or so. And we get the cessation of a lot of symptoms. And we can't make a lot of claims when it comes to that, but our testimonials just kind of speak for themselves. So yes, the average is about a 15 to 20 pound. We even offer the franchisees this: if you want to offer a guarantee, we suggest that you do that. Each franchise is their own, business, that. So there's certain specials and things we could say is a good idea, but if they don't want to do it, they don't have to. But a lot of them do, because the women will come in and they've tried so many things and they just can't lose weight. Now it resonates with them. Oh my gosh, hormones. I thought that was it. My husband thought I was crazy, or my doctor didn't agree. So they resonate with our message. We're really providing them with hope. I mean, they're excited when they leave, when they hear, because we do a free consultation. And
Well, and you also have, I mean, I think it's important to note that, you have an advisory board for the franchise system that does have, I think, at least one doctor on it, right? And then a registered nurse and some other, because this
correct.
does it kind of crosses over into the quasi or the medical sphere of things when you're talking about the hormonal balancing along with with the weight loss, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that it can scare people a little bit. We're non-medical, so we tell people that. And people say, "Well, how do you know what's going on with hormones if it's not medical?" And I say, "Well, listen, we're going to give you a symptom-based questionnaire before and a symptom-based questionnaire literally a month later. So if you didn't have any symptoms, if you were slender and you were in a good mood and you're swinging from the chandeliers with your libido and all that, you wouldn't even come see us, right? So obviously you have issues and we document them all. Okay, so we document them on a scale system, and then at the end of the month, the changes are solved. We don't need to do blood or saliva testing. But if I was giving you, if B Balance was giving you medication, um, or anything like really strong herbs or something like that, we would have to do blood or saliva levels. Well, first of all, we're not medical, so we can't do that. But number two, we're only using natural supplements that any excess would be urinated out of the body. So even if you listened to me and you said, okay, well, I'm going to use Dawn's hormone cream, I'm going to use her homeopathic for Be Balanced. If you use too much, because how do I know what a client could do when they take something home, they get overzealous or something, any excess will be urinated out. So we're not using estrogen, we're not using testosterone. That's very, very important. We're using a system that balances hormones. We balance insulin and cortisol, which deals with your blood sugar and your stress level. That's all lifestyle, that's all diet, that's all relaxation therapy. And then we gently bring up a woman's progesterone level, which balances everything out. That actually balances out the overactive and stimulatory and kind of dangerous effects of estrogen when estrogen's too high. And we do that with a plant-based cream. So people are like, oh, that makes sense now that I understand it. Because we want women to know that they always check with their doctor, but we have, breast cancer survivors. We have women with breast cancer in their family, BRCA gene carriers that have done our program and it's been okay with their doctors. But we always say individually check with your doctor. We just want people to feel comfortable. We're not trying to cut off or bypass doctors at all. We want to work with them if needed. But it's just a lot of it's just lifestyle change and natural supplements, and the results are dramatic, as you can see from what I'm telling you.
So, what's your role in this in the franchise system? And then I want to talk a little bit about the franchisees and so forth. But your role in the overall system is what?
Well, basically, I deal with anything having to do with the science. So if we add on new products or new protocols, we're coming up with a leaky gut protocol, which is a specific protocol that if people want to do down the road after they lost weight, working with gut health. So like it'll be a protocol that'll have specific. We do a lot of things in protocols, which means we're not just here's a bunch of supplements, take them. We're like, no, no, no. We want you to make these dietary changes, these lifestyle changes, take these supplements, and here's how we record your results. And you work with one of our coaches or what we call natural hormone balancing specialists. So I will develop new areas as far as that goes. I'm involved with all the training. We just made a whole series of new videos for training. We have people come in, I do the training, we do conference calls every month. I support them with all types of scientific links or articles. So for example, we have a whole especially for this topic because you're like it's kind of scary, it's kind of deep. We have a whole reference booklet that we give franchisees that if somebody out in the public comes into your center and says, oh, I heard you use maca, that's an herb, I heard that causes cancer. Let's just say somebody would say something crazy like that. Well, our franchisee, they're not an expert on every herb that we use or whatever. So what we do is we say, well, here's a reference, send them this from the National Institutes of Health, and it's 5 references that say that maca doesn't cause cancer and it does these 5 good things. So I'm there to really support them out in the community to make sure that if anybody comes in and asks a question, if there's any such a situation where someone is a little bit slow to lose, we have different forms that they can send in. So we've taken something again that could be highly confusing and systematized it down. I ask very, very specific questions and then I can get back to them and say, you know what, this medication could be throwing her off a little, have her check with her doctor, that type of thing. So that's more what my role is as far as working with the franchisees, and then product development. I just developed a new product with our chemist. So things like that, always looking ahead, always to make sure that we're on the cutting edge, interfacing with other professionals and making sure the franchisees are supported so the clients feel confident and supported.
And so, who are the type of franchisees that are in your system, and who would be a good franchisee? Is it somebody who has a background in this area?
That's kind of funny because, and our opinion of that might have changed slightly because you learn as you go through, we're being new to being franchised. It's not like we had all those answers initially. So initially, I will say this, almost, I would say 90% are women, and they're women that are over 40. they're the actual demographic of who we're going for. They become the franchisees. So that's basically what we have now. Some of them have various business backgrounds. You do not have to have a health background. All we want is for you to be passionate about helping women and women's health.
So it's just somebody who has that. And then if they come in, do they have to go through their own certification to become, so how do they become a franchisee?
Yeah. Well, they have to go through, there's various training, there's training modules they have to go through on all aspects of, our technology and all that. I'm more in charge of the scientific one. So as far as the knowledge of how to speak to hormone balancing, that type of thing with the consultations that they do, the natural hormone balancing specialist, there is a certification course they have to go through with tests and everything like that. We used to do more of it on hand here. We still have them fly out to do their training in Lancaster, but we now have a lot of it basically in these modules. So it's so nice. They can do a module, take a test, do another module, take a test. And then when they come out to training, they have all that. And we spend more time review. We go to the different centers around here because we are a hub here in Lancaster. Philly's very close by. And that's where they can do the hands-on practical and sit in on actual consultations and things like that. So yes, that's how we get it that way. But like I said, you don't have to have that background. We'll certify you. But again, we want you to be passionate about that. Now, as we've gone on with this more, we're realizing, yes, we are attracting some franchisees that have had other franchises that are saying, hey, we're business people. We're going to come in for more of a business region because this is an innovative concept that's very futuristic. We can tell that weight loss is going down this path of hormone balance. So we've attracted more people that way. And if maybe this is a good time to say it, basically one of the largest franchisees owners of Orange Theory, there's about I think there's over 1,000 locations with Orange Theory. That's a fitness franchise, been around for a while. We won right down the street from us. This man owned 33 locations. He's a very successful businessman. He's out of Texas. He recently signed a deal with us to buy the rights for the rest of Dallas, Houston, and Austin, and to open a minimum of 18 BeBalanced centers. So he's starting with, I believe it's 3 locations in Dallas, opening probably January, February of next year. But he just saw us as a really innovative new type of franchise, new classification of franchise, and he just wanted to get in. So we are attracting more. We do have several that are opening their second and third locations now, which is always a good sign.
No, that's great.
And our first franchisee has 3 locations. So she's got the most so far. So that's always, a good sign to see.
Yeah, and you guys have received some good press, it sounds like, from some folks. So you can talk about that as well before we wrap up. But I will say, if anybody wants to learn about BeBalanced franchise model, go to BeBalancedCenters.com. That's BeBalancedCenters.com. So it's BeBalancedCenters.com. And thank you, Dawn, for coming on. But yeah, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about, you guys got some recent good press, right?
Yes, we were excited. Let me see what the month is. December. Yeah, December Entrepreneur Magazine. We were named in there as they have an article called Franchises of the Future, 347 trending top franchises. So I thought that was super exciting. And I said to my brother, well, how many franchises are there? Because there's 347. Is that big of a deal? He's like, Dawn, there's 6,000. There's over 6,000 franchises.
That's
so we're
right.
excited to be in that. And just to end up, I'd love to just say this. There seems to be a national trend among women, because we're a women franchise, with the Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement of women's empowerment, and that parallels with the mind, body, spirit, wellness movement. And we feel like BeBalanced is right in the eye of that perfect storm in America right now. And we believe there's a national move for people to be balanced, and we think we're going to be a big part of that for the future. So we're super excited, and we'd love to have any of your listeners contact us and hear a little bit more about it.
Well, thanks again for coming on. Your excitement comes right through the microphone, so that's fantastic. And I wish you nothing but success in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Franchise Euphoria. If you enjoyed this episode or have enjoyed the podcast in general, I would really appreciate it if you could go to iTunes and leave me a rating and review. It really helps to get this podcast out to more and more people. So the easy way to do it is go to iTunes and in the search box, put in Franchise Euphoria. You will then see my cover art, and you click on my smiling face that says Franchise Euphoria, and then click on the link that says ratings and reviews. It's that simple, but boy, oh boy, does it mean the world to me when people leave ratings and reviews. And like I said, it really helps get the show out there. Once again, would love it if you would go to iTunes and leave a rating and review if you enjoyed this episode or other episodes of the show. And until the next time, happy franchising.